Hey there, this is Tori from the Crafty Girl, and I just want to say thank you so much for purchasing my pattern. If you're seeing this video, that means that you have supported the channel and purchased the Summer Breeze Bralette pattern that looks just like this. This video is going to be a complimentary video to the actual tutorial that you can find over on YouTube, which is available to everybody, but I wanted to give y'all a very in-depth, or maybe a more in-depth look at how to use the pattern. I find it helpful when I watch a video in addition to maybe having written instructions. So all of your supplies and everything are located on page 2, and here on page 3, this is where we're actually going to see the pattern come into play, as well as the directions on how to read the pattern. So how you're going to read the Summer Breeze Bralette pattern is over here on the left. This is the row number. So you could, at any time as you're keeping track of which row you're on, you'll be able to see how many number of pins that you should be on at that point. The INC just stands for increase. So this is going to remind you that if you're on row 5, so if you're knitting at the back to row 5, you are going to increase or add another pin, because previously you would have been on 2 and now you're going to be on 3. And you'll see that it does change as you go through. Again, I created and tested and did multiple iterations of this pattern to get it to be the best shape possible, so that it would look like that really nice triangle bralette shape. So this is what it looks like. I would also recommend using the check boxes as you go. I get very distracted. So for me, for the first 4, they're all 2 pins, so that one's not too important. But as we start to get into some of these increases that are more than just a standard increase, this might help you out a lot. I still do it. I still use it. Also, as you utilize your pattern here, make notes of anything that you may need to adjust, because you can adjust this pattern a little. I will tell you, if you add more rows, which you can, if you want it to get a little bit longer, it will change this shape slightly. So be mindful. This pattern is kind of a one-size-fits-many because of the cotton or whatever yarn you use. It will stretch, so you can get a little creative there, as well as multiple customization options. So I will be doing a follow-up video. You'll be able to find that over on YouTube with some customization options for the base Summer Breeze Bralette. So with that said, first thing we're going to do, we are going to be working with panels and increasing. So in the actual pattern, I included a resources page for you. So if you are unfamiliar with those concepts or those different ways of using the circular knitting machine, you can watch those videos and then come back to this one. Again, this is just a private video for those that have purchased the pattern, and you can come back to this one at any time. So to start this project, we are actually going to cast on without waste yarn. So that's really awesome. It makes it super simple, and it gives us the nice triangle at the top. In fact, let me show you. I've already done this one right here. This is my first time working with this yarn. I'm using a cotton, and I definitely recommend using cotton when you're making clothing, especially for the summertime. Cotton is a really great fabric, natural fabric to use. So we're trying this one out here. I was hoping that the variation in it with the orange would show through. You can see it's kind of in here, but it didn't, but that's okay. It'll still be super cute. So this is going to be the top, which is going to be the point, and it'll look better once we put it together. Also, I would recommend steam blocking your items, which just means like steaming it out and letting it dry in the shape that you want. So this is what we're actually going to be making. So for when you first cast on, for the neck strap, I do recommend in the pattern, if you want just a very simple piece of yarn as your neck strap, if you don't want to get too complicated with it, just leave a long tail, because that long tail you will be able to use as your neck strap if you do it on both pieces. In fact, you can see on this piece here, I left a long tail, so we can use this as our tie. You can also leave an extra long tail and then crochet finish that. And then you can also just come in at the end and attach yarn and do a crochet finish. So there's lots of different ways that you can create those straps. Now to cast on, we are going to be, again, I'm using the Addy 46 with cotton. If you have a Centro, cotton is not going to work. And I'm just saying that as a blanket statement, but I have tried all of my Centro machines with cotton and it just gives me the biggest headaches, but it does work beautifully on our little machine, our little gal right here. So I have it on panel mode. It doesn't really matter where you start. I found because we are going to be keeping track of our rows in a manual fashion, not with the counter. So you can actually start this whatever works best for you that's going to help you keep track. So I'm going to set that counter to 0. So we're going to cast on. So we're just going to go in front of our cast on pin and then behind the first pin and then in front of the second pin. So these are going to be our 2 pins right here that are going to be knitted first. Then you need to make sure that your yarn goes under this bumper and then into the yarn feeder. Also, might want to push that one down and give that one a little tug. So now we have this set up. I am going to count this as row 1. And if you recall from the pattern, we are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. The first four rows are all just going to be with 2 pins. Then we're going to do an increase to 3 pins. On row 6, we'll do an increase to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're actually going to increase all the way until we get to 16 pins. And then we're going to let it ride for a little bit. We'll do a little increase. We'll let it ride for a little bit, do an increase, and then we will finish off at a total of 20 pins. So we just did our first row, so I'm going to count that one here. Make sure it pops under. That's number 2. Number 3. And number 4. And I am going to try to go slow here at the beginning just to make it a little bit easier to follow along. So we just did our first 4 rows with 2 pins. Now the pattern, again, says row 5, we should increase to 3 pins. So to do that, we're going to go back and then we're just going to go to the next pin and we go all the way past until it's under the bumper. Okay. And then we're going to come back. Make sure it goes under this pin when you come back. Sometimes it has a tendency to want to not do that. Okay, so we're going to count that. That is row 5. The pattern, and then cotton does tend to get stuck a little bit, so you might need to push that down a little. Then the pattern does say we're going to increase again on row 6. So we're just going to go till that pops under the bumper. That's number 6. Again, we're going to go back, make sure that's under there. And we're going to increase again for row 7. We're going to increase again for row 8. And then we'll continue increasing till we get to 16. So you do need to be aware because it does, especially with cotton, I find, or if you have some yarn that has a lot of colors in it, it does tend to want to split or get stuck. So just be very mindful, and it's okay to go slow. This is a fast project, by the way. You could actually make one of these in less than an hour. In less than an hour. Now you can get crazy with it and you can customize it in many different ways, but it can be a very quick project. All right, so here we are, we're on row 18. If we go back to our pattern, row 18, we should be on 16. So we increased to 16. Now, row 19 and 20, we're gonna just go with the flow. We are gonna continue to knit 16. So we'll go back. So no increases on this round. So now we're about to knit row 21. Once we knit row 21, then we increase to 17. Then we're going to knit row 22, increase to 18, and then continue through. So now we're going to do 18, 1, 2, 3 times. So 3 rows of 18. Okay, so we just did our 3 rows of 18. Now we are on row 26. So we're going to start row 26, and then we are going to, in fact, let me show you the pattern. We're starting row 26, which means we are going to increase by 1 to 19. On our way back on row 27, we'll increase to 20, and then 20 is the maximum number of pins that we are going to be using. So once you get to 20, you're just going to continue until you get to 40 rows, and then we're going to cast off with waste yarn. And here is our finished cup. Now we take this yarn tail right here. In fact, you can take both of them if you have that there, and you just want to tighten it up. So pull it a little bit so that you don't have a gap here. You will find that depending on your tension, you may find some longer stitches. Obviously, when we are increasing, you're going to find a little bit longer stitches. But down here at the bottom, you can just kind of tug it a little and tighten it up just a little bit. Also, to make things a little bit easier, I would recommend doing a steam block at this point. So what that means, if you're not familiar with the concept, you'll see, especially with the knitting machines, they do a lot of curling, and that happens with yarn in general. No matter what, if you're a knitter or crocheter, you're probably going to see some yarn curlage. I don't know if that's the way to say it. We're going to say yarn curlage. How would you say that? Let me know. But we probably will see that. So a way to get rid of that is actually to use a little steamer. So we have a handheld steamer. Well, it's not handheld. We have a professional steamer upstairs. But what you would do is you would steam it lightly so that it would be flat, and then don't touch it. Once you get it the shape you want, don't touch it. Let it air dry. And then once it's dry, it'll retain that beautiful shape. So I would recommend that. It does make some things like finishing a little bit easier when you're not battling with the curl. But again, it's totally up to you. So we are just going to continue as is right now. And we're just going to take this little short piece of yarn, which is at the bottom loop of the inside of the bralette. And then over here on the right, we're going to pull it through the bottom loop of the other side of the bralette. And we're going to make sure to capture both of those. Now, you can lace this up if you want to do like a mattress stitch to get it as high as you want, unless you want it to be a little lower cut. Again, this is really personal preference, whichever works best for you. But you do want to go through it a few times, even if you're just going to be using the last loops here. So I'm going to go back through that loop and that loop one more time and give it a nice good tug. Just make sure it looks pretty. And I'm gonna leave this one. I'm not going to actually, but I do want to get it a little tighter because you want it to be tighter. We will crochet this together as well, but it's always a good idea to have a nice tight finish here. And this is cotton. It will flatten over time. So if it bothers you that you have this little knot here in the middle of your chest area, it will definitely, like I said, as you work with cotton, that's the best part about it. It will get softer and softer over time. Also, it's really easy to take care of. So now that we've done that, the next step is we're going to create the band strap. All right, well, I caked what I could. This does make it a lot easier. And what we're going to do to create the band strap is we're actually going to crochet here About, for me, I do 75 chains because that is the length that I want, but you can vary this whichever works for you. You just want it to be the exact same size, or remember the number of chains you do because you're going to mirror that on the other side. Here is my band strap number 1. So I did 75 rows. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come to, again, here's our bra band. We're going to come down to the outside edge, and we're going to pick up this loop right here that has the waist yarn in it. So this is the first loop right there. And then out of the way. And then we're going to pull it through, and we're going to do a slip stitch into the first one. Okay, so I like to do a slip stitch there. I don't need any extra stretch on that one loop. Then we're going to find the next loop, and my problem, because I decided to use a very similar color, is I need to make sure that I'm not going to miss any of those. Okay, then we're just going to go through, pick up that loop right here, and I am going to do a single crochet, not a slip stitch down here, because we do want it to have a little bit of stretch. Okay, again, find the next one, don't miss any. And we're going to continue this all the way across. Okay, now when you get to the center, remember you had attached those two pieces, so make sure that they are going the correct direction. You can move those little pieces out like that. Big tip for you, don't use waist yarn that is similar colors to your yarn. That is a problem. All right, so we want to pick up, this loop is a knot. So this is where we knotted it together. So you don't need to pick that up, but I would like to at least get it in the yarn here. So I'm just going to single crochet through the hole that is there. Down this side, we're going to pick up this loop on the very end, and then we're going to go through. And again, pick up all those loops. This side is a lot easier. And just single crochet. Don't miss the last couple, because sometimes they can be a little hidden here. And again, on the last loop, I'm just going to do a slip stitch instead of a double crochet. Just to pull it through both like that. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to chain the exact same number that we chained over here for our band strap. So I'm going to do 75. Okay, so we'll snip our yarn, pull it, tie it off. And now we are going to remove that waist yarn. This is the true test. I always do this slowly, because if I miss any loops, you can still pick them up at this point, because sometimes I do. I always say pay attention, but you know how we get. You know how I get. Very important too, on the ends is where you really want to pay attention and make sure you didn't miss any loops. Okay, so let's just double check this. Is anything coming out? Nope, that looks good. That looks good. Everything's good so far. All right, let's take out this next bit of waist yarn. Did not miss any. Wonderful. All right, so our last little step here, unless you're adding straps to the top, is we now need to make sure that we have hidden all of our loose threads. Okay, there's yarn tails everywhere. Move, yarn tails, move. All right, now you can go steam it if you want to do that, but let's go ahead and put it on the mannequin and show you what it looks like. All right, so let me show you a couple of variations. So this side, let me take that out. This side, I actually did a crochet strap. So I just crocheted onto the end to give it a little bit of thickness. But then this side, just to show you what that looks like, this is just the yarn tail that if you had two long tails, you could actually do that, which makes it even simpler. also to point out, I have a couple of bra pads just sitting in here to show you what happens. I have not pressed this, but you could stitch those right inside, and then that way they are not sheer. I would recommend getting something that matches the color. This light pink is kind of a nude, so this doesn't really show through, but it gives you coverage no matter if it stretches, which it will. And someone had asked a question, does it lose its shape when it gets wet? Of course it does. If you've ever had any clothing that is made out of even just cotton in general, if it gets wet, it kind of stretches out. So anyway, this is the finished Summer Breeze Bralette. All of your support makes it possible for me to create more patterns like this and share them with all of you. So thank you so much, everybody. Until next time, see ya!